40 years old, $0 saved for retirement. If that's you right now, don't close this video out of embarrassment, because embarrassment is exactly what keeps people stuck for another 5 years doing nothing. I've been around money my whole adult life, made a lot of it, lost a stupid amount of it too at various points, and I can tell you flat out, 40 with nothing saved is not a death sentence. It feels like one. Everybody's got an opinion online about how you're supposed to have started at 22, how you're already behind, how the compound interest train already left the station without you, mostly noise. Half of it's coming from people trying to sell you a course. The other half is just internet doom that makes people freeze instead of act. And freezing is the actual enemy here, not your age. You've probably got another 25 years of earning ahead of you. That's not nothing. That's a real window if you stop wasting it, feeling bad, and start using it. So here's what we're doing today. I'm walking you through exactly what I do step by step. If I was sitting across from a friend who came to me at 40 saying, I've got nothing, help me fix it. No jargon, no fluff, just the actual moves in the actual order you make them. Quick thing before we get into the meat of it, subscribe. And look, I know every video tells you to do that. I'm not going to pretend this is some unique moment, but I mean it a little differently here. What I'm about to walk through is genuinely the stuff people pay an advisor a few $100 an hour to explain to them in a conference room. I'm not charging you for it. The only thing I ask in return is you hit that button, because that's the only signal I get that tells me to keep making these instead of going back to whatever else pays the bills. It takes 2 seconds. Do it now, then come back, because the real plan starts in the next section, and I don't want you missing a step. All right. Okay. First thing, and I mean genuinely first, before we touch a single number, you got to get your head right, because panic wrecks more people at this stage than bad math ever does. I've watched guys who built real businesses, who are sharp about everything else in their life, completely lose it. The second retirement math came up, and panic makes people do one of two things, both bad. Either they shut down completely, stick their head in the sand, stop opening the statements, pretend it'll sort itself out, or they swing the other way and go take some reckless swing, trying to catch up in 18 months, dumping money into whatever coin or option. Play some guy at the gym was talking about both of those end the same way. Worse off than when they started. So let's just kill the shame part right now. You're behind some imaginary schedule, some finance blog set for you. So what? That blog doesn't know you paid off your sister's medical bills, or your business folded twice before the third one worked, or you were raising 3 kids on one income for a decade. Doesn't matter why you're here. What matters is the next move. Here's something I've noticed over a lot of years watching people build wealth. The guys who get serious in their 40s often end up ahead of the guys who started early but never actually got serious. Starting early and dabbling isn't a strategy. It's autopilot. Put in $50, forget about it, check the balance once a year, never increase it, never learn what's actually in the fund. Meanwhile, there's a guy who starts at 41 but goes all in, increases contributions every raise, actually understands his allocation, treats it like it matters, and he's going to outrun a whole lot of the 22-year-old starters who coasted. I'm not telling you time doesn't matter. It absolutely matters. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But discipline and income are things you actually control starting this afternoon. Time already spent, you can't get back. So stop grieving it and start working the 2 levers that are actually in your hands. I'll tell you the honest version of something that took me way too long to figure out myself. The number in your account matters a lot less in your 20s and 30s than the habit does. A guy putting away $300 a month like clockwork for 25 years, never missing, never panicking, is going to end up somewhere most people would call rich. Not because he was smart about picking stocks, because he never stopped. That's a boring answer. People want the exciting answer, the secret account type, the one trick nobody's telling you. There isn't one. The habit is the whole trick, and it's sitting right there for anybody willing to actually build it instead of hunting for a shortcut that doesn't exist. Now, the money, let's get concrete, because vague advice like save more is worthless. I hate when people say that like it means anything. You need an actual number to aim at. You'll hear people throw out $2 million like it's gospel for everybody. And for some people, sure. For a lot of people, that number's way off because it depends entirely on how you actually want to live, not some magazine version of retirement. Here's the simple version. Figure out what you spend in a year to live your actual life, not a fantasy. Your real numbers. Housing, food, insurance, a little room to breathe. Say that lands around 50 grand a year. A rule a lot of planners lean on is you can pull roughly 4% of your total savings per year without running dry over a normal retirement stretch. 50,000 divided by 4% gets you to around 1.25 million. Yeah, that number still looks massive sitting at zero. But here's the piece almost nobody tells you. You're not funding that whole number from your own savings alone. And you don't need to. Social Security is going to cover a real chunk of that if you're in the States. Could be 15, 20, 25 grand a year depending on your work history. So the number you actually need to build might be a fraction of that scary headline figure. It's the gap, not the whole mountain. That's the difference between something that feels impossible and something that's just hard. And I want to push back on the idea that retirement is even one fixed number that appears on a specific date. It moves, your spending drops once the house is paid off. It drops again once the kids are out and independent. Maybe you don't stop working entirely at 65. Plenty of people I know kept working part-time doing something they actually liked, not because they had to, but because sitting still for 30 years sounded like torture to them. Even a little income in your 60s takes enormous pressure off the number you're chasing. So go find your actual Social Security estimate this week. Takes 5 minutes on their site. Write down your real target instead of some scary number a headline handed you. The second you know your actual number, this stops being a source of dread and turns into a math problem. And math problems have solutions. And that's really the whole trick, turning the fear into a spreadsheet you can actually work with instead of a thing you avoid thinking about at 2 in the morning. Let me give you a rough sense of what closing that gap actually looks like in practice. Because numbers on their own don't mean much until you see them move. If you're 40 and you start putting away $1,000 a month, getting something like a 7 or 8% average return over time, by 65%, you're looking at somewhere in the range of $700,000 to $800,000. And depending on the exact returns and how consistent you are, that's not the 2 million headline number, but clay your Social Security on top of it. Maybe some part-time work in your 60s, maybe a paid-off house, lowering your monthly needs, and suddenly you're looking at a genuinely livable retirement, not a scary one. It's not magic. It's math applied consistently for 25 years straight. Okay, now the actual moves in order, starting today, not this weekend, today. Move 1. If your job offers any kind of 401 kilobits match, you get the full match, period, full stop. That's free money sitting in your paycheck that you're leaving unclaimed if you skip it. And there is nothing else in the entire world of investing that guarantees you 100% return the second you put money in nothing. If you're not capturing that match right now, that's priority number 1. Above literally everything else in this video, I don't care what else is squeezed in your budget, find a way, because walking away from free money is one of the most expensive habits I see people carry for years without realizing it. Move 2. Once you've got the match locked, look at whether a Roth IRA fits your situation. The money grows completely untouched by taxes, and you don't owe anything when you pull it out later, which matters a lot more when you're starting late, because every dollar of growth you generate over the next 20 years actually stays yours instead of getting clipped along the way. And here's something most people your age genuinely don't know, and it's a real edge for you specifically. Once you hit 50, the government lets you put in extra catch-up contributions on top of the normal 401 kilobits and IRA limits, built specifically for people in exactly your spot. That's not an accident. Lawmakers know plenty of people don't get serious until their 40s or 50s, so they built a lane to help you close the gap faster than someone who started 25 ever could on the standard limits. Use it. Push toward maxing it if you're able. If you can't this year, fine. And know it exists and grow into it as your income climbs. Move 3, if you run your own business or freelance, and a lot of people watching this do, look hard at a SEP IRA or a solo 401 kilobits. Those let you shelter a much bigger slice of your income than a regular IRA, sometimes tens of thousands more a year, while also cutting your taxable income at the same time. That's one of the real perks of working for yourself that employees don't get. And I've talked to business owners making great money who had no clue this even existed because nobody ever laid it out for them in plain English. Don't be that guy 3 years from now kicking yourself. Talk to an accountant this month, not someday. An order actually matters here. So don't skip the sequence because some headline told you to buy a hot stock instead. Match first, then Roth or traditional IRA, then back to maxing the 401 kilobits if you've got room left. Then a regular taxable account. After that, if you're still able to put more away, boring in the right order beats exciting and out of order every single time. When it comes to money you're going to need in 25 years. Now let's talk about where this money actually comes from, because I already know what a good chunk of you are thinking. Great, but I don't have extra cash lying around. I hear that constantly, and sometimes it's true. Most of the time it's not. It's just that nobody's ever made you sit down and actually look line by line at where the money's going. So here's the homework, and I need you to actually do it. Not nod along and close the tab. Pull your last 2 months of statements. Go through every single line. Almost everyone finds $200 to $600 a month, sitting in stuff they forgot they signed up for, subscriptions they don't use, delivery fees, stacking up, a gym membership nobody's touched since March. I'm not telling you to live like a monk. I like nice things. I've earned the right to enjoy some of what I've built. But at 40, with nothing saved, every subscription you're not using is quietly robbing your future self. Redirect it, automate it the day it hits your account so you never even see the money long enough to be tempted. On top of trimming what leaks out, think seriously about growing what comes in, because cutting your way to $1 million is slow and honestly kind of miserable. As a way to live, growing income is where the real speed comes from. Look at what you already know how to do that somebody else would pay for on the side: bookkeeping, writing, sales, design, coaching, project management, whatever your actual skill is. You don't need a business plan and a fancy deck. You need one client. That's it. That's the whole start. I've seen this play out with people who spent years thinking they had nothing marketable to offer outside their 9 to 5. And it turned out the exact thing they did every day at work was something a smaller company would happily pay for on a part-time contract basis. You're not starting a company. You're just putting a price tag on something you already know how to do. Post about it. Tell people in your network you're taking on a client or two and see what happens. Worst case, nobody bites and you're exactly where you started. Best case, you've got an extra few $100s a month with almost no added cost to generate it because you already had the skill sitting there unused. An extra $500 a month funneled straight into your accounts, stacked on top of what you're already doing, completely changes your trajectory over the next couple decades. Real money gets built by stacking income streams, not by sitting around hoping one paycheck magically doubled itself. You don't need to build an empire. You need one extra stream feeding the retirement accounts every single month without fail. And here's the part people mess up constantly. Don't let that new money creep into a nicer lifestyle. And the entire point is it goes into savings before you get used to having it in your checking account. Otherwise, it just quietly becomes a car payment and you're back where you started. Worth mentioning housing too, because for a lot of people in their 40s, it's the single biggest lever in the whole budget. And almost nobody wants to touch the conversation. If your house is stretching you thin or there's room to downsize, refinance, or bring in a roommate for a stretch, that's an uncomfortable talk, but it can free up real money, hundreds, sometimes a couple thousand a month. And that money compounding for 25 years is genuinely life-altering. I'm not saying sell the house tomorrow. I'm saying actually run the numbers. Instead of assuming your current setup is off the table just because it's uncomfortable to think about, I've watched people hang on to a house purely out of pride, watching it eat their whole paycheck every month when a smaller place in a different neighborhood would have freed up enough room to actually build real savings for the first time in a decade. Pride doesn't retire you. Cash flow does. Last thing, And it might matter more than anything else I've said, your mindset around the actual investing, because starting late means you don't have room to make the classic rookie mistakes. Mistake 1, trying to time the market. I don't care how sharp you are, how many videos you've watched, nobody consistently calls the market. Not the pros, not the hedge funds, nobody. What actually works is putting money in every single month, regardless of what the headlines are screaming that week, because over long stretches, markets have trended up, and consistency beats guessing every time. No exceptions I've ever seen. Mistake 2, getting too conservative because fear takes over. I understand the instinct. You're 40. You feel like you can't afford to lose anything, so you want everything parked in cash. I feel safe. It's actually one of the more dangerous moves at your stage because inflation is quietly eating cash every single year, and you still got decades of growth ahead of you that you'd be leaving completely untouched. There's a real difference between being smart and being scared, and money is where people confuse the two most often. Mistake 3, panic selling the second the market drops. It will drop probably more than once before you retire. That's just how every market cycle in history has worked. No exceptions. The people who actually lose money aren't the ones who sit through the dip. It's the ones who bail in a panic and lock the loss in permanently. Build the plan, automate it, mostly leave it alone, besides an occasional check-in and rebalance. Mistake 4. And this one gets people at every single age, not just 40 chasing whatever's hot right now. Whatever's blowing up on your feed, whatever your coworker bragged about at lunch, ignore it. By the time something's exciting enough to be everywhere online, most of the easy money already got made by somebody else, and you're the one walking in at the top holding the bag. Genuinely smart, disciplined people throw out years of good habits the second they see a chart shooting straight up. I've watched it happen over and over. Don't be that person. Boring, diversified, low-cost investing doesn't make for great content on social media, but it's what actually builds real wealth over a quarter century every single time it's played out. The unglamorous, consistent, unemotional investor beats the guy chasing hot tips almost every time. Over a long enough stretch, that's not opinion. That's just what's actually happened over and over across decades of markets history. Your job for the next 25 years isn't to be a brilliant stock picker. It's to be the single most consistent, disciplined person in the room. Genuinely, that's the whole edge. That's it. One more thing on mindset before we close this out, because it matters more than people give it credit for. Stop comparing your account balance to strangers online. You have no idea what the real financial life looks like behind the highlights reel. Somebody flexing a big number might be drowning in debt you can't see. Somebody quietly grinding away at their 401 kilobits with no flashy posts about it might retire more comfortably than almost anyone you follow. Run your own race on your own numbers against your own targets. Comparison is a great way to talk yourself into a bad decision and a terrible way to actually build wealth. So here's the challenge, and I actually want you to do this. Not just nod along and close the video. Today, not tomorrow. Today. 3 things. Confirm your employer's 401 kilobits match and make sure you're capturing every dollar of its open or check your Roth IRA and set up an automatic monthly contribution, even if it's small to start. And pull those statements. Find at least $200 a month and you can redirect straight into your future instead of somewhere you won't even remember spending it. None of this takes genius. None of it requires insider knowledge nobody else has access to. It just takes you actually starting today instead of promising yourself you'll start someday. People completely flip their financial trajectory from a dead stop in their 40s purely because they finally sat down and did the unglamorous work and set the accounts up, automated the contributions, and stopped waiting for the perfect moment. It's not complicated, it's just uncomfortable to begin with. And that discomfort disappears the second you actually take the first step instead of thinking about it for another year. 40 isn't the end of your financial story. Honestly, it might end up being the start of the best chapter of it, but only if you move now instead of scrolling on to the next video and forgetting every word of this one by tomorrow morning. Drop a comment and tell me the one thing you're actually going to do this week. I read every one of them. And if any of this helped, even a little, subscribe, send it to somebody you know who's in the exact same spot, and I'll see you in the next one.